Joined now by Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen after a thriller in Detroit. Guys, for starters, can we just petition the league to make Seattle and Detroit play every single season? Because it seems like it happens this way every single time.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's only a shame. We were just talking, Dave, that you don't get to see Detroit have the ball at the end. I mean, we kind of had that feel, whoever had the ball last. And, you know, I know Detroit would have loved to have it, but for Seattle, after looking, quite frankly, terrible in the second half last week, and at the end looked like they were going to give it away, that was an impressive kind of resilient win for them.
Yeah, and you got to feel good for Geno Smith. The way regulation ended was kind of a wonky play there, taking that big loss on the sack to give the short field to Detroit to kick the field goal. But I'll tell you, both offenses all day. I mean, there were some turnovers. That really ended up being the difference in the game. It's Detroit turning the ball over 3 times, one a pick six, one to fumble on the first play of the second half. Seemed like that was really the turning point. But give credit to Seattle. They came on the road, hostile environment, and got a big win to avoid going 0-2.
That's exactly where I was going to go, and I'll get y'all out of here on this. But it's such a huge pivot point. And y'all mentioned, obviously, Detroit would have loved to have a 2-0 start. But when you look at the statistics of what an 0-2 start means, you managed to get this game to overtime. What does it mean to Seattle, especially as poorly as they played in week 1, to get out of here with a win? It seems like the type of thing that can, I don't want to exaggerate week 2, but it seems like the type of thing that can drastically kind of change the trajectory of your season.
Well, I just think it means something that their offense came to life because, their offense was a downfield attack offense. They played this game without both of their starting tackles. So I think you saw that like, oh, that's the Seattle team from last year, right?
Absolutely. And when Tyler Lockett, it seemed like every time Geno Smith needed a critical play, 3rd down, 4th down, there in the red zone on a critical 3rd down to end up being the walk-off touchdown, it was really Tyler Lockett that was on his, that was his big target. And Tyler Lockett's been doing that for a long time. And, just, again, you have to feel good for Seattle and this offense to come out and answer the bell after a really bad week 1 performance, especially in the second half.
I feel like I need a towel to wipe the sweat off my head. Dave, that was fun. Hope you enjoyed it.
I have anxiety, and I'm not even there. So, yes, y'all, hey, Seattle wins a thriller in overtime, 37-31 over Detroit. Thank y'all so much for the time. Safe travels, okay?
See you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks again to KB and Greg for the time. I thought Greg Olsen made a hell of a point for a game such as this. I mean, you'd like to see both teams touch the ball in an offensive shootout like this. Detroit finishes with 418 yards and 31 points. They don't get an opportunity to possess the football in overtime as Seattle drives right down the field and Tyler Lockett walks it off. Having said that, I don't think I can work up animosity or outrage over this because the Lions lost the turnover battle 3-0. Like, you had your opportunities to put this game away. You're in control coming out of halftime, 14-7. First play of the second half is a David Montgomery fumble. 2 plays later, the Seahawks are in the end zone to tie up a game that the Lions really felt like they had control of. And it happens throughout the second half. Jared Goff, man, we were tweeting and talking a little bit too much about that no interception streak. It ends at Ford Field on Sunday. 383 attempts without an interception. He is pick-sixed by Trey Brown. So again, 7 of Seattle's points come off of a Lions turnover. And so I look at it and I say, yeah, the Lions had absolutely every opportunity to win this game in regulation. I think that's why you look at Seattle and say, way to go digging out of this hole, guys. Way to go coming back from a halftime deficit. Again, they lose by 17 points in week 1. You don't want to fall into an 0-2 hole, not with a very impressive San Francisco 49ers team in your division. They don't let that happen. Geno Smith looking more like the guy we remember from 2022, 328 yards and 2 touchdowns, a very healthy 8 yards per attempt. But again, other than the turnovers, there's not a whole lot to be upset about if you're a Detroit Lions fan. This was exactly what you want it to look like. Jared Goff, 323 and 3 touchdowns. These are 2 of the best offenses in the NFC. I would expect that's going to continue. I can't wait to see how the Lions shake back. They had a huge opportunity to be 2-0. And not only that, they would have had 2 wins against playoff teams from the previous season. Well, now they get a chance to test themselves against a surprise team. We'll keep talking about these early season surprises. They now face the Atlanta Falcons again at Ford Field, the surprise 2-0 Atlanta Falcons coming up to Detroit to try to really put the league on notice with a third consecutive win. And again, the Seahawks turn around. They get the Panthers next week, but you look at their schedule, there's some nasty games coming up. And you know the statistics if you fall into an 0-2 hole. Like I've said before, I don't know how much I buy into that, but I do buy into the idea that you have a hell of a lot better chance of getting where you want to go without having to dig out of that kind of hole at the beginning of the season. They improve to 1-1 after probably the most baffling loss of week 1. And I think, this is the exact type of thing that the NFL is famous for. A lot of people picking the Lions before this game. It was an awfully big line for a matchup between playoff contenders. I think it was closed at 5.5 in favor of the Lions. Seattle banged up on the offensive line. Does not matter. Like KB and Greg alluded to, they get back to the explosive, fun offense that we remember from last year. We'll see if they can carry that forward. But again, not sweating this too much if I'm the Detroit Lions through 2 games. If I had told you were going to split these games, you'd probably say, yeah, that sounds about right. You would assume that you're going to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs on opening night and win this game at home. So you flipped it. It doesn't matter. It's still a plenty impressive performance. You get the gritty win against the Chiefs on the road, and you score 30 points in a loss here against Seattle. I think that's what it's going to take for the Lions to be successful. And to this point, we haven't seen anything that causes me, at least, to lose confidence in their offense. We'll see what happens with David Montgomery. He did leave this game late with a thigh injury. Not sure what the severity of that is yet. Fortunately for them, they have a first-round pick in Jahmyr Gibbs that they can lean on. Jahmyr Gibbs, his career maybe not off to the exciting start that a lot of fantasy football fans wanted. He goes 7 carries for 17 yards, does have 7 catches for 39 yards in the passing game. But David Montgomery, clearly the workhorse among those 2 running backs to this point. If he's unavailable, I'm curious to see how that changes the approach in Detroit. But man, this was just a very, very fun game, and not a whole lot to feel bad about for either of these teams. Somebody's going to lose when you go to overtime. Hell of an entertaining game, and hat tip to the Seattle Seahawks for making sure they get their season back on track.